Hiya, I'm your host Terry J. Ahman, and welcome to this, my ninth ever VideoFuzzy, the video I'm recording alongside my podcast, episode 80, titled F is for Fiasco, in part a reference to how long it takes to put these things together, and discussion for my current collection. You'll just have to pull up the episode to get. In this set, cataloging discs 1251 through 1275 in my classic collection, I encountered a few episodes of the CBS legal drama Close to Home, which have ragged on mercilessly at other points in this production. It's ludicrous. I'm only watching it for Christian Kane, etc., etc. Check out episode 2 around the 14-minute mark, and I get more involved in episode 30 ahead of the 15-minute mark if you want a refresher. Some were better than others, of course. One especially ripped from the headlines first season entry I found on discs 1259 and 1260, delicately titled Suburban Prostitution, focused on Kristen Bauer as Shannon Cook, a suburban housewife who turned tricks during the day while her family was at work and school. Her neighbor filed a complaint about the endless parade of men he videotaped streaming in and out of her home, whom she greeted at the door wearing lingerie. Jennifer Finnegan, as beautiful blonde prosecutor, wife, and new mother Annabeth Chase, was unmoved. She didn't want to pursue it. Even with Gladys Kravitz next door, it was going to be a rough case to make. They had to catch Shannon in the act of receiving money for sex, and no money was ever seen changing hands. At worst, all they had was a neighborhood scandal, and from what I was seeing, some parking issues. Oh, were you next? Oh, I'm early. No, you go ahead. John Carroll Lynch, as her boss, DA Steve Sharp, asserted that if they don't prosecute the small cases, they turn into big cases, i.e. the broken window theory of law enforcement. So Annabeth approached Shannon to figure out what was going on with her. Another soccer mom had told her about this great new work-from-home opportunity. She'd introduced Shannon to her online madam named Terry Schaefer, played by Judith Hogue. Terry accepted payment through a site called RaunchyMamas.com, a modeling service. She sent all the Johns to the soccer moms. Yep, right to their home addresses, based on guys clicking their photos on a website that anyone in the world could click to, look at, and rate them. And it didn't sound like they had a lot to say over who might show up or come back later for more, bring a friend, invite him to family dinner perhaps. So, how do you know Shannon? That sounds workable. Then once a week they gave them a pay at a book club. When he heard this, the DA said, "My wife's in a book club." Oh, calm down, Tammy Faye. It was 2005, Oprah Winfrey. Everyone's book was in a wine club. They sent Shannon in with a hidden camera and got enough probable cause for a warrant. Unfortunately, with the delay while Judge the N is silent acknowledged golden thread through this collection, Patricia Belcher as Judge Riker in this one. The delay while she ruled on whether the computer they seized via warrant also included access to the information saved on the machine. Seriously? The neighbor, I guess, got tired of waiting for Shannon to be pulled from her home and burned in a bonfire on her front lawn like a witch, and sent a copy of his peeping Tomery to the local media, who, seriously, showed up outside a private home and hurling questions at her, identifying her as a prostitute on the air ahead of jury selection. She's a private citizen. She's cooperating with local law enforcement. I'm trying to understand how this news operation did get sued for obstruction from one side and jury tampering from the other. But when TV cameras show up, her husband grabs the kids and storms out, leaving Shannon shook so bad she commits suicide. Well, at this point, the case becomes something more than a Hollywood madam investigative reports on Heidi Fleiss, or for that matter, Sharon Lords' honey mama plotline on Desperate Housewives the season before. The suicide was bad enough, but the case took a turn when James Eckhaus' Annabeth in-house computer tech, Matt Doretsky, installs a virus to destroy evidence on Terry's computer because, tiny little world, his long-estranged underage daughter, Lily, was one of the models. He was mortified that she was in there at all and wanted to make sure no one would find out. dude, prosecute the human trafficker. That's the way to rescue her. I mean, oh wow, I'm trying to imagine his reaction to his boss trying to build a case against his tall, little, small, little, more or less estranged little daughter. And oh, hell yeah, Class D felony evidence tampering. Fire his ass from a cannon. Once she has a name, though, Annabeth heads over to talk to Lily, who doesn't want to, but okay, fine, she will. She testifies that she's been meeting gross older Terry clients for a year, starting when she was 16. She's 17 now, and Terry's got lists of all the extra services she provided. So, along with promotion of prostitution, including Lily's photos on her raunchy mama's website, gets Madame Terry charged with child pornography along with solicitation, which Annabeth said gets the FBI involved, and that she'll spend the rest of her days as a registered sex offender, in case, being morally responsible for Shannon's suicide wasn't enough. There was an aspect of this show where they occasionally tried to move beyond rote legal procedural to a human aspect of the cases. The concept of close to home sought to find the humanity among the lurid morality plays, which I'll point out just as often contributed to the histrionics. But for this one, along with the high-tech hooker book clubs, the writers included a brief exchange toward the end, which I think elevated the show beyond mere titillation. Annabeth meets with Shannon's husband after pretrial rulings, and I've been watching for the scene since the opening credits. I saw cross my screen the name Austin Tichenor. Now, I very obliquely highlighted the Reduced Shakespeare Company podcast in episode 26. I know I've talked about them elsewhere from time to time. Third anniversary of this work back in 2020, my conversation with Mark Bailey, I expressed interest in Joss Whedon's 2012 production of Much Ado About Nothing, featuring Amy Acker and Alexis Denisof as Beatrice and Benedict. And it's highlighted in an, at the time, recent conversation on that podcast between Ms. Acker and host Austin Tichenor, which is a long way to go towards applauding that weekly effort. But yeah, big part of my featuring this one. Austin as Don Cook, widower of a suburban housewife who committed suicide when her neighbor went media about men streaming in and out of her home. Don tells prosecuting attorney Annabeth Chase that Madame Terry sent him a letter, apparently right out of the blue, listing all of her jobs, how much she was paid, and everything she'd done to earn it. He didn't know what to do. Then, when he saw the video on the news, he lost it, grabbed the kids, and took off. I should have let her explain, he said. I should have listened, and now my kids have lost their mother. His Shakespearean training, I thought, opened a new channel for Macbeth. I got to see recently in the Joel Coen masterpiece, Tragedy of Macbeth. All my pretty ones. Did you say all? Oh, hell, guys, all? All my pretty chickens at their down. Annabeth asks Don if there's anything she can do, and his mouth hardens. You can make Terry pay for what she did to my family. Please tell me you'll do whatever it takes to get that woman. To which she affirms, whatever it takes. I'll mention he showed up with a date book and address book and some photos. The writers could have had him include that letter he said Terry sent him, which honestly sounds like Exhibit A. Madame Terry spends the whole episode floating along about everything because she's so much smarter than everyone else. And then for at least 2 raunchymamas.com models, she sends material evidence connecting all the dots to people who presumably love to see her in prison. And in neither case does it occur to either of them to turn it over. But that's the level of writing on this show. Show developer Jim Leonard's approach in structuring these episodes tended towards discovery. The audience pulled along as the prosecuting team pulled clues and traced evidence where it led, so the plot twists were baked into the structure. We all thought it was heading one way, but oh wow, this new clue with the recalcitrant witness, the unpredictable reveal sent us all careening in a new direction. Suddenly it's an all entirely new case. The shows that rely so heavily on plot twists and dramatic reveals are kind of like shaking car keys at infants. They're endlessly fascinated because constant surprise. One episode was so completely over the top, I longed to learn that it was the last that 2005 me was willing to put up with, but I see just from this set of cataloging, I followed it into its second season. Yep, a couple weeks later, Close to Home aired its Romeo and Juliet murders. Ooh, see, it's all Shakespeare, fancy! It's an episode title as pompous as it is spoilery. It's never a bad time to point out that at least Romeo and Juliet were never brother and sister. That one, the police were called into a noise complaint from out-of-control house party. Local law enforcement discovered that the teenage kids, Scott and Tracy, were unsupervised except for an uncle who stopped by from time to time because the parents had flown to Europe 2 weeks ago and never checked in with anyone. Oh, that's probably them in the opening scenes of the episode being buried in a shallow grave in the park. The prosecutors are interviewing the children, noting somebody had gotten into their pharmacy sales rep dad's sample case. The boy, Scott, said some guy named Ron would sometimes meet his dad in the garage. Well, the investigation can't turn up any evidence that the parents even made it to Europe. And then a jogger finds their bodies buried in the park, and questioning focuses the kitchen wiped down with bleach. Turns out one of the children was adopted, and then how they were sleeping together. And their parents found out, so the daughter shot them, and the boy cleaned up the crime scene. Yeah, Close to Home was pretty much crime porn, and not just for the over-the-top family drama storylines. Families in these situations, we wouldn't be cycling through out-of-hand, unsupervised children, inattentive teachers, vacationing absentee parents, shallow graves, and curious sniffy dogs, dad's mysterious phantom friend Ron, and illicit drug connections, Uncle benign neglect, and the whole school parties. Maybe it's Ron, maybe it's abuse, maybe the kids are sleeping together. There is just so much more than that. Like, if it had been going on for any amount of time, Scott said more than a year, classmates would be creeped out by the whole Jack and Meg thing between them and would say so. But parents would notice the weirdness. High school drama club or not, these prosecutors are trained professionals who would trap these idiot kids in something way before Tracy completely changed her testimony in open court. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? Also, looking at the text messages would have occurred to somebody way before it did in this investigation. Good old DA Steve Sharp. Text messages? I could barely figure out how to talk on my cell phone. Maybe DA stands for something other than District Attorney in this production. Dumbass. The vacation itself, European vacations post 9/11, have records of people getting on planes, getting off of planes, and going through customs. Hell, pre-9/11 people had to go through customs, and Uncle's sitting there, oh, I don't want to besmirch his good name as some kind of purveyor of illicit drugs. My dude, your niece and nephew are doing the nasty. And I think, yeah, once they found out they'd have canceled their plans, your kids in bed together is force majeure. Oh, is it the sunset as we drift along the Seine? So beautiful this time of year. I do hope they're using protection. Child Protective Services, mandatory counseling. The kids killed them, but it's hard to... Oh, never mind. This was dumb. Along with the other B story thing where the DA demanded the assistant DA charge tweakers as meth dealers to get that sweet, sweet weed and seed funding, which... Yeah, fantastic storyline, guys. It was hard to denigrate anti-drug community development programs in 2005, but you went for it. Yeah, I don't know how much Close to Home I archived. More, certainly, by my estimate. Far too many, but yeah, absolutely. Let's call it a range of quality, these things. Crunching some numbers. Now, every 10 episodes, I include a by the numbers segment as a progress report and show so far on this effort. And this one was kind of significant, so I'll include it here. This by the numbers segment marks, as I said, a fairly auspicious moment, in part because I am so close to the numerical halfway point for this collection. As of this month, I've archived through disc 1275 in my classic collection, and the halfway mark at 2,570 discs is 1285. I've said for a while that this is the halfway mark numerically because virtually all my discs thus far have had 2 hours of material each. Some future point I will encounter discs with 6 hours of material on them, and at that point the cataloging will take, any guesses? 3 times longer. Not that it's not taking plenty long enough getting through 25 at a time now and writing up commentaries. I pause to wonder what this project would look like doing 10 discs at a time. Current projections suggest I've got a little over 5 years left of the current format, with about 50 more episodes of Classic Collection at a rate of about 10 episodes a year. 10 discs at a time predictably more than doubles that number, with 130 episodes, which seems mind-blowing. Of course, I never knew what 80 episodes would look like when I started this. I recently took the opportunity to listen to my back catalog for an upcoming project. I feel pretty good about the trajectory of this effort. For sure, I'd have less material to talk about at 10 discs per episode, and I'd get through the writing, recording, and editing process faster. Yes, it's hard to know. I've met me and feel like I'd go into the same amount of detail in the Friday night feature. In fact, name of that segment. That's a leftover from a younger, more optimistic version of me who thought I could post an installment on a weekly basis. It was simply unrealistic. It's rethinking that thing for sure. Whatever the periodicity of the installments, I still have nearly 1,300 discs catalog, so it's going to take the time it takes. I guess for episode 81, I'll get through disc 1300 and decide how to proceed from there. As for this episode, I've cataloged through disc 1275, my classic collection, disc X438, my current collection. That set filling 4 binders with 110 discs each, some 6 hours of material per disc. That pencils out to about 2,550 hours of media in my classic collection, about 3.5 months, and nearly 2,630 hours of media in my current collection, close to 3 2/3 months. So that's more than 7 months of searchable media that I've cataloged altogether in a collection of, at this point, it is official, more than 3,000 home-burned DVDs. That's 2,570 discs in my classic collection, as this installment, nearly half of which are cataloged, woohoo, and 438 discs in the current collection, for a total now of 3,008. That's a significant milestone. I've been sneaking up on 3,000 for so long, I can finally call it true. I'm very happy with this effort in this media collection. That only accounts for the VHS to DVD transfers and direct-to-digital recordings in my home media collection. I've also got shelves of commercial media I still add to occasionally, and you can tell from the episode segments more often streaming material now that I started this project. Archiving is a gray area for streaming material. I feel like if it's on my screen, I should be able to record it, but some services, Apple TV is among them, are quite clear that this is not the case. So be it. I do predict a second Dark Ages in my media consumption, wherein I'll know for sure I've seen something but can't access it anymore because either I no longer subscribe to the service or they're not running it anymore, or some actor or producer did something problematic, or all the rights have been bought by this company or that, they don't transfer. It's a world we're entering, and it's called to mind, not for the first time in recent memory, it's African proverb that when elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. That said, it's unlikely I'll run out of stuff to watch anytime soon. And that'll do it for this installment of VideoFuzzy the video. I know I enjoyed putting this together. I hope you'll enjoy VideoFuzzy the podcast, that link at the end here, especially episode 80, F is for Fiasco, the complete installment, or check them all out on YouTube. And like and subscribe for the latest. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Happy viewing.